We just waiting on you.
You ready, Roger? Yeah, we're rolling. Go ahead.
Good morning, Grand Bahama. Good morning, Bahamas. My name is Reverend Kenneth Lewis. I am the president of the Grand Bahama Christian Council. And on my left, we have the second vice president of the council, Apostle Rita Stewart. And on my right, we have the treasurer of the council, Pastor Nelson Bean. We have other council members here. We have other pastors here, but I would invite them to introduce themselves. Other than Apostle Tyrone Thomas, who is also an executive of the council. We'll start with
I'm Apostle Tony Grant from Call to Holiness Ministries, Agape House.
Pastor Robert Lockhart, Calvary Temple.
Pastor Eddie Victor, Living Water Assembly.
Apostle Andre Farquharson, Agape House.
So good morning again. We're here to speak to the new bill that has been tabled in the House of Assembly and has been passed, as I understand it, unanimously by the members of Parliament of both sides of the aisle. And we're here to stand shoulder to shoulder with our brothers and sisters of the Bahamas Christian Council, in particular Bishop Fernanda, who spoke directly to this bill. We want to join in saying that we support the position that the Bahamas Christian Council has taken, that the faith community, the Christian community, can only accept and support that narrow part of the bill, that narrow initiative of the bill, which speaks to medical use of cannabis or marijuana. Other than that, the faith community, especially us here on Grand Bahama, does not support the other aspects of the bill. I'm not going to say too much more. I will come back to speak to it, but I allow the others to join in and say what they have to say. Apostle Rita?
Okay, we need to move the mics.
Oh, okay. I don't want to hog up the discussion. You see?
Don't forget my
Your little one. Yeah.
Good morning, all.
Wait.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Good morning, all. I've already been introduced. We are
Sorry, say your name again, because when they edit it,
Yeah.
they're not gonna have that round table.
Oh,
They're just
okay.
gonna have you
Okay.
speaking. Yeah, so if you
Okay.
could just say your name, please.
Good morning. I'm Apostle Rita Stewart, second vice president of the Grand Bahama Christian Council. Good morning, all. As our president has already alluded to, we are in agreement with the medicinal aspect of the marijuana. But from our research, we found that daily use of marijuana can affect performance and how well people do in life. Research shows that persons who use marijuana on a daily basis are more likely to have relational problems, worse educational outcomes, lower career achievements, and reduced life satisfaction. The use of marijuana has also been linked to other mental health problems, such as depression, anxiety, and the suicidal thoughts among teens. And so we are concerned about the legalizing across the board of marijuana as to the impact it would have on our society, and in particular with our younger people. So we are, like our president has already said, we are only in agreement with that small, narrow passage of marijuana that says for medicinal use only.
Okay,
Then we're going to go to Pastor Lockhart.
Yeah.
Again.
That'll be easier.
we should probably just move to the seating.
We'll just move to the seat.
Yeah.
Yeah, and keep switching the seats.
Okay.
I was stationary, that's how one.
Okay.
He's saying
Just
put it in the
allow-
middle.
Yeah.
So can we use this seat in
Yeah.
the middle?
This seat, yeah.
Ready?
All right.
Grace be unto you, Bahamas. My name is Nelson Bain, pastor of New Beginning Life Ministries International. And like my colleagues who just spoke, I am in absolute agreement with the idea of using the marijuana plant for medicinal use, but I am opposed to any legalization of this drug on our streets. And my reason for it is simply the fact of what we are seeing now in our community concerning marijuana. We have young people on the streets now stoned out of their minds because of marijuana. We have people now in the dire ward because of marijuana. So for me, it is ludicrous for us as a people that trust God all these years and have trusted Him and depended on Him to supply our every need, to now say the industry of something, well, to put it simply, the industry of dope is now a viable way for the economy of the Bahamas to get better. I simply cannot agree with that. And as the church here in Grand Bahama, I can speak comfortably by saying this. I believe that the greater part of the population of the church in the Bahamas, and in particular here on Grand Bahama, do not agree with this legislation that has been passed and has been being discussed in the Senate at this time, or perhaps even passed by now in the Senate. And so the evidence is obvious to us in the faith community. As ministers of the gospel, we deal with issues that derive from the abuse of this plant now. The consequences are dire. And I'm reminded of a commercial years ago that gave the example of the brain on marijuana, the fried egg. And so that has not changed. It is still a dangerous drug. If it was dangerous in the early years when the government of the Bahamas were trying to stamp it out, I believe it is still dangerous today. And so therefore my support is, of course, with the church as we stand in unison as people of God that this is not something that we will ever agree to. We certainly concur that it has medicinal benefits, and we say to all and sundry, yes, we can agree with that in the narrow sense as which is discussed and which was presented by the Christian Council. But other than that, we are in absolute disagreement with it. Thank you.
Pastor Robert Lockhart, pastor.
Wait.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Pastor Robert Lockhart, pastor of Calvary Temple. I must say this: a few years ago, when there was discussion and with the community at town hall gatherings throughout Grand Bahama by the government on this matter of the legalizing of marijuana. The issue that was really put forth, of course, I was in many of those town hall meetings, and the government at that time, as they talked about the possibility of legalizing marijuana, the overall purpose, and I think out of the study that was put forth or the gathering of information, is that the government felt at that time that for the purposes of medical marijuana, that most persons were in agreement and felt that that would be the best way forward, but not for recreational purposes. I know there's a discussion for religious purposes. One of my concerns about that is anybody can claim to use something for religious purposes. That's almost without limit. If something is legalized, or something that was illegal is made legal for religious purposes, how would you prove in any context whether someone is using something for religious or non-religious purposes? That premise is almost an unprovable premise one way or the other. And so I think just that alone also makes it totally permissible almost under any circumstances, because I can claim you can almost claim to do anything for religious purposes, and I just feel that we're going down another road, as we did with the gambling situation, where we're introducing something that's going to have adverse effect, a negative effect on our people, and I would hope that I'm sure that the government it is now before the Senate, and as we know, the Senate usually rubber stamps everything the government passes in Parliament. At least in my observation, from since becoming a voter, I don't think I've seen the Senate ever turn down something that came from the House. So it's probably a foregone conclusion. But so what I would say is that I hope that the government, if they've made that decision, are going to look at all of the ramifications, all of the possibilities, and make sure that they're putting in place things that would protect. And also, like with the gambling law that was passed, much of what the government said they would put in place to protect the Bahamian people never really materialized. And the purposes did not materialize either. As they said, it would be to help with education and sports. And that never became a reality. And so, when governments pass these types of laws under these premises, I think as a community, we've seen by example that they never really come to reality or fruition and just become a selling point. And so I think us as Bahamian people are aware of that. But I would just like to say that we need to make sure, because I think this might be something that's even though gambling is addictive, this is something that can even be more damaging. And as a pastor, I've dealt with many families that are dealing with people that are addicted to marijuana, addicted to other forms of drugs. And so we definitely need to make sure that we're making laws that lead to the well-being of our people in the long run. And at the same time, I know they wanted to deal with the issue of people being arrested for small amounts of marijuana. But I think we could have dealt with that issue separately from just wholesale legalizing of it. But nonetheless, we are here. And as a church, we'll continue to do all that we can to help our community be the best that it can be, in spite of whatever vices are available to our people.
No, we're
All
waiting
this
for
gonna
you.
go on?
No, you have something to say, right?
Yeah, but
They'll
They'll
edit
it. Yeah.
As you know, you'll do that.
That's
I
it.
disagree. I just agree with the decision the Christian Council made.
No, but say it.
Yeah,
Say
good.
it. Yeah, that's
Good
good.
to hear your
Why not?
voice.
It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. That's good. That's healthy.
I guess I just want us all of us.
Trust me, you're gonna be on the
speaking,
news.
and then nobody. You get the president, and then
No, it's good. You're gonna be on the news for sure.
Now you're frightening him.
Ready?
Looking between the two cameras as well.
State your name.
My name is Apostle Tony Grant. I am the senior pastor of A Call to Holiness Ministries, Agape House. And I'm here today to support what the Christian Council stands for. We as a body need to stand together because if we don't stand together, we'll fall apart. And the reality is we've seen the effects of drugs in the community. And so we need to take a stand and say that we only want the passing of this bill for medicinal purposes only. And, all of the other things that governments try to put in, we know that we'll always have disagreement with them, but we need to, in cases like this, we need to stand firm on where we stand and what we believe.
Oh, you good. Yeah. That's good. You have anything to say, Pastor? Yeah. I just want to say. Oh, you
You want to say something?
Yeah, I want you to say
At
something.
the end.
Yeah. And then I'll wrap it up. Yeah. Because everybody had a little piece to say. Yeah, he had us confused.
You'll be confused. I think
He disagreed with it. But what he meant, he support. Pastor.
Let's put it like this. He was really thoughtful.
You got it.
Yeah, you got it right. You got it right. Like I said, that's what he told me. He said, oh, you said you definitely been abused. He said you thought you would support it.
Whenever you're ready.
I'm Pastor Eddie Victor, pastor of Living Water Assembly of God. I just want to really deal with some hard facts that must be considered, particularly by our government. Number one, you're about to implement a industry of growing marijuana. I'm going to say grass too, dope. There's many different terms. You're about to implement the growing of marijuana when we do not have a thriving agriculture industry in our country to grow tomatoes, lettuce, bananas, oranges, to feed our population, and also to have food security, which is an international problem right now. Secondly, there's a major concerns in the business sector concerning work performance. Persons who have utilized these drugs, it's been proven it affects their mental faculties, it affects their physical work performance, and this is going to create a dilemma in the business community. And then thirdly, it's the whole aspect of policing this industry, because there's multiple licenses that are going to be given out. There are fines with persons who are caught with various amounts of marijuana. If you look at the policing aspect of it, we have issues now in our country. We cannot police or stop the floods of guns in our country. We cannot control the murder rate in our country. Today, the murder rate is at 71 murders for the year, and we're only in July. We have a problem already when it comes to policing the laws that are in place now. So it's clear that they will not have the ability to police this bill.
So, a question for you.
Yeah.
The government has liaised with the Rastafarian community, and they define the use of cannabis, marijuana, as part of their sacrament. What is your viewpoint on that?
So if you go back 20, 30 years, you find that marijuana globally, throughout the international community, has always been considered a dangerous drug. It was illegal then, and for the most part, it's still illegal. In fact, the federal government in the United States passed laws to decriminalize marijuana, and most of the states, especially the southern states, have not done so. So when you talk about marijuana, you cannot take something that is harmful to the human body and convert that into a sacrament. I don't know anywhere in the scriptures where cannabis, marijuana, weed is considered an element of the sacrifice that Jesus made on the cross. We know that the scriptures say he took bread into his hand and he broke it and he gave it to the disciples and said, "Take and eat, for this is my body which has been broken for me." Bread. He didn't say nothing but he didn't say anything about weed. And I hesitate to say that we are not against the Rastafarian community. We are simply saying that you cannot take something that was illegal then and make it legal now and then call it a sacrament. If you look at the bill, when you look at section 48, subsection 6, I think it is, subsection 5, a holder of a religious organization license may make an application to the authority for an exempt event permit in the form prescribed by regulation to observe an occasion of worship or fellowship at a public place. I'm a holder of a religious organization license, so I fall under this act. I can gather a whole bunch of people and we can say, we just having a sacramental event here in my home, because it has to be in a private place. there are too many holes in this bill. And as a Christian community, we caution the government, even though we appreciate the fact that the government is under extreme pressure from the international community to pass laws consistent with what the progressives believe should be in place. The Bahamas, progressive as it may be, is still a conservative Christian country. Bahamians are mostly conservative. We believe in family, we believe in marriage, we believe in the Word of God. Even though some Bahamians may not go to church, most of them go to church. Most Bahamians not only go to church, but believe in God. And we stand on the Word of God.
Okay. The use of alcohol has been scientifically proven to cause worse effects than marijuana because of the natural benefits of the drug. Do you think that the law on alcohol should be reconsidered as well?
Yeah, I'm one who.
That's not correct. No, that's not correct.
I've heard that report, but I don't believe
No,
that.
no,
Not from my
no,
personal
most
experience.
research doesn't agree with that concerning alcohol.
Well, you look at Europe, you look at places like Italy and France, where they literally drink wine almost every day for dinner, right? That's an alcoholic beverage. And in fact, it reduces heart conditions. You find they have less hypertension, less heart conditions, and so forth. So even the Bible says, take a little wine for the stomach's sake. So God himself speaks to wine that does good. It's only when you abuse it. Now, if you're talking about the abuse of it, that's another story. But the use of marijuana, you don't have to abuse it. I am a product of the 70s. I went to college in the 70s. And I know of many of my colleagues, my classmates, brilliant men and women, many who used marijuana. You see them today, just as Apostle Rita said, it has diminished their mental capacity. It has diminished their drive. They become mentally and socially lethargic. So I've seen the effects of it. I've not done a study on it. I don't need to, because I look around and I see what it has done to friends and family members. And so I take your point. It's a very good point. But it is the use of alcohol, not alcohol itself. Because all of it, we need alcohol in our system. We need to take a little bit of wine every now and then.
Let me just say this, and I said studies sometimes can be
Okay,
accurate.
wait,
but-
let's get you on the mic.
Yeah.
You know you're there, we're just gonna put the mics over to you.
Yeah, move it, yeah.
Forget that one. I got it.
In the Bahamas, and I think studies have proven this.
Hold on,
Oh, okay.
wait.
One of the things that I would like to see is studies that are done in the Bahamas. I know in the Bahamas we like to quote studies from other countries, but different dynamics are at play in different countries, and you'll find out even ethnically different dynamics at different levels, and so I'd like to see studies in the Bahamas, even though we quote studies from America and Europe. We're different people ethnically and all of that, and so I'd like to see studies from the Bahamas. And I would also like to see studies in the Bahamas to see how many Bahamians have used marijuana for medical purposes, and doctors who would say that this person have improved as a result of the use of marijuana for medical purposes. I've seen no such studies done and presented to us either from psychologists or medical doctors or UB, which they said would have done one, but we haven't seen that either. So sometimes we hear these reports that come from other countries, and you know how reports are and statistics are. They can be taken from a lot of different angles. And so studies in our own country, done by our own people, amongst our own people, will give us a better picture of these things. But I can say, as studies have shown, 90% or maybe more of all Bahamians, their choice of counselors is a pastor in most cases. And so many of us as pastors are also counselors and have counseled people of varied aspects of our community over many of years. And I can tell you the truth, when it comes to the use of marijuana, I have seen more of our young people that have fallen vice to it, whether for religious purpose or non-religious purposes. I've seen the damage that it had on them, the damage that it's done to so many of our Bahamian young people. And I think if we did a study amongst our Bahamian populace, we would find that marijuana have done more damage than good over the last 30 years in the Bahamas.
Additionally, what do we say to corporate Bahamas? You know, here in particular at Grand Bahama, we have the industries that if any trace of marijuana shows up in the young man or young women urine, they cannot get that job.
That's correct.
So us legalizing it would help them to get the job, or it would be considered, because it's legal, it's no longer a problem if a person have drug in their system or is a marijuana user. So we have to consider, and I say this for our politicians, our government, to consider the ramification of something like this in our country. Because we are sending a message to our young people that is very detrimental for their future, because marijuana, the consistent use of marijuana is one of the things that we are experiencing right now on our streets as we move about. We see the fruits of this drug in our community up close. And so I would really say to our government, consider what they are doing here.
But what about, I mean, going back onto her point, what about on the street seeing the impact of alcohol abuse?
Absolutely.
Because that is quite extreme.
And that speaks, that strengthens my point, because the abuse of alcohol, I grew in a community that I've seen it up close, is very destructive. And it's the same thing with marijuana. But here it is, alcohol was legalized many years ago. My generation, or this generation here, didn't have a say in it. But we have a say in this country now that this has come forth, and we know it to be destructive. And so we are saying to those in authority, consider what you're doing here. Look at the total picture, you see, because our young men and young women in this country, we have many of them right now who had to come back from college because of these things. Many they can't hold a job. You give them a job, they're on a job for a couple of weeks or months, and so there are so much negative things about this drug. It far outweighs the positive that the government is trying to present here.
So you would say anything in excess ain't good.
Absolutely. That's it.
Even
Absolutely.
food. Even
Yeah,
food.
you see.
Even food.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even
Yeah.
food.
You see. And see.
We have an obesity problem in the country now.
You find that the international
Let's
community.
go to the mic over there, please.
Oh. Yeah, we find that the international community does not go to Eastern countries like Saudi Arabia and those Muslim countries and try to force these kinds of laws on them. They wouldn't even try. They wouldn't even attempt it. And I take my sister's point about alcohol, and my brother spoke about the abuse of it. And we know that when somebody who is under the influence of alcohol cannot perform. That's it. And so, as he said, our generation didn't have a say in it. But if I had a say in it, I would outlaw hard liquor. I would not agree for it to be legal as it is in places like Saudi Arabia and other places.
So you would say no more rum and coke.
You could have the coke and take the rum off.
Without speaking to the mic, let me just use an example. In Europe right now, some European countries, you can yet put certain amount of sugars in drink. That's why if you go to Europe, if you buy a Coke or Pepsi, will not be as sweet as the Coke
No,
or
it
Pepsi
won't
you
be.
buy in the
It
Bahamas.
won't be.
Because it is law in Europe that those soda companies can only put a certain amount of sugar in those things because they've proven that too much sugar makes people sick. Now in European countries, because most of them are socialists and the government pays for healthcare, government says Because we pay for health care, you are not going to be allowed to give our people anything that's going to make them sick. And so they determine the quota of how much sugar could be put in certain drinks in these European democratic free countries. Because what they realize is, as a government, we're not going to allow you to distribute things to our people to make them sick, because we're going to pay the price for that. And so what I'm saying is, if as a government you know that something's going to be harmful to your people, you must, that's why I'm saying in the law, there must be some more guidelines. Because I'm saying all of us are religious leaders. That means all of us would qualify to get a license for marijuana and say we bring it. To me, it's just, I could have a marijuana party in the name of religion.
Yes.
That's right.
Okay, so what I'm saying, like you said, there's too much loopholes in the law that people can play with. Because how are you going to prove that I am not gathering together for religious purposes? How are you going to prove that? A religious gathering, simply as coming together. If I said I'm coming together for worship experience, nobody can question me for that. The law is too broad. We have problem policing what is good laws today. It's like, who's going to police this? We have problem policing the stuff we have now. Okay, who's going to make sure that this stuff is not abused and whatever like that? It's just too much loopholes, moving quickly to legalize something. And then what I'm saying also, how much, like she talked about the abuse of alcohol. They can tell me how much alcohol will get me drunk. They can tell me how much alcohol gets a woman drunk, depending on her size and her weight. How much alcohol will get me drunk, depending on my size and my weight, because that's how alcohol, you know. If we drank alcohol, he won't get drunk as quick as me. Okay, because he's bigger. Okay, and I'm smaller. Our body weight, our size, all determines that. Okay, so in America, that's why they have alcohol tests, right? If they find certain amount of alcohol in your body driving, they give you a what? They give you a ticket, because it's illegal for you to drive. It's not illegal for you to drink alcohol, but it's illegal for you to have that much alcohol in your body, because they're saying you cannot function, you cannot properly manage a car with that much alcohol in your body. So what I'm saying is, they realize there needs to be regulations. What I'm saying is, when we look at the law, it's too broad. It does not address all of the issues that's going to come about as a result of it. And what I'm saying, it makes you think that the government's out to achieve something else, not so much the full protection of our people. So I'm saying, if you're going to pass the law, pay attention to all of the ramifications, much of the possibilities you can look at, and make sure it's properly done. Even in our alcohol system, I go out to Port Lucaya, there are little kids walking around with alcohol in there, even though it's illegal for Bahamian underage to be drinking alcohol. No kid is stopped. No patron is charged.
Sorry. That's a good
Yeah.
point. So let's,
Yeah.
let's just bring the mic across.
Yeah.
You can talk about that St. Paul Lucai, bring the mic across. Please talk about the St. Paul Lucai issue.
Yeah, that's a major
The
issue.
church have a lot to do now, guys. Because if they're gonna legalize it, they can take
There's someone in the question.
you guys and us as parents to instill in our kids.
But we were waiting for
why.
the questions, you see. We were waiting for the questions.
Yeah,
and we
I mean,
were
it's good that
addressing
y'all
them.
ask questions, because it makes you think.
Yeah.
It's good you're
Yeah.
asking questions.
Yeah.
This is the,
That's a press conference.
Okay, please, that St. Paul Lucai.
Yeah, let me, one of the problems that I see that we also have is that we realize that some of the laws that are on the book now to control substance abuse, like alcohol, exists in our country, but they're not properly policed. Let's look at us right here in Grand Bahama. I go to Port Lucaya, there are children underage with alcohol in their hands, when the law says that a child is under a certain age cannot drink alcohol. They purchase it from the patrons. No child is stopped, no patron is arrested or dealt with. And so what I'm saying is, we can see that even where alcohol is legalized with certain restrictions, there's no one policing that and making sure that that takes place. Now we're going to add marijuana to that. So what I'm saying is, that's all of these things have been looked at clearly, the full ramifications of this, and make sure that we're not adding another vice, that we don't have the ability to police and to manage, and to make sure that we are looking at all the ramifications. And so what I'm saying also, as a religious leader, and since today's for religious purposes, you can get a license to use marijuana in your private setting. I'm saying, in the name of religion, you can almost do anything. And so what I'm saying is, but we know the abuse of this, and not just the use of it is harmful, whereas the abuse of alcohol is harmful, and but the use of it is also harmful. So what I'm saying is, the law has too many loopholes. It still needs to be more carefully thought out, and we believe that we're going to be adding another vice to the vices that already exist, and there's not enough regulations in place to man all of the loopholes that we know that people will try to run with, because we always know there's people that would work the loopholes. And so we just think it needs to be more careful thought given to this, because we don't think it's going to really, and the problems that I thought that we were really trying to solve, which had to do with many of our young men in prison for small quantities of marijuana. I believe we needed to deal with that issue, but just a broad legalizing of it, I don't think is the answer. And so I think it needs to be thought out more clearly.
I had an interview with a community activist yesterday, and he was talking about the expansion of records, criminal records for the use of marijuana. Can you just speak a little bit on this?
I'll let this president.
I think that's an excellent question, and I think the government does not need to create a law to outlaw marijuana. The government could create a policy whereby persons who are caught with small amounts of marijuana, the prosecutor simply does not prosecute that. The person is fined, just as like if you're speeding, right? If it's under an ounce, you don't fine that person. The government can by signature remove those expunge the records of those persons who have been convicted of marijuana, the use of marijuana, not trading in it, but the use of marijuana. So this here, I mean, it's a huge leap, and as Pastor Lockhart said, there are too many loopholes. I mean, this bill is designed to create loopholes for person to engage in the growing of marijuana, the sale of marijuana, and the use of marijuana. And if we can't police underage use of alcohol, how are we going to police this? So I caution the government not to sign this bill, but to step back and to seek more consultation with the faith community and do more studies. Let the students at UB do a real study this country, as Pastor Lockhart said. Persons in this country, in our context, in our culture, and then let's see what the study says.
Okay. Going back now.
Sorry, did I answer your question?
Yeah, you
Okay.
I had another question out of that, but it
Mhm.
left my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, looking at my generation,
Mm-hmm.
I am out in the public.
Mhm.
I see the things going on. I rarely see younger people smoke marijuana, but the intake of alcohol is insane.
Mm-hmm.
Every day,
Mm-hmm.
we have
Mm-hmm.
various bars in the country
Mm-hmm.
and on the island. Do you think that the use of alcohol when driving a car, if you look back at the traffic fatalities on the island, they would say that alcohol consumption was used. Do you think that this goes hand in hand with the marijuana?
Yes, it does. That's the reason why you have DIU laws. Persons who are what we call are high on drugs should not be engaged in driving a vehicle or operating a dangerous machine, a machinery that can kill them or somebody else. We know that to be a fact. We don't even have to do a study of that. The government needs to focus on the problems we have now and not create additional layers of problem through bills such as this. In essence, and of course that goes hand in hand with us as religious leaders. The church needs to do more work. There's more work for the church to do, so as to teach our young people the vices of alcohol. Alcohol is a vice as well. So is gambling. So is prostitution. So is marijuana. You could legalize prostitution, but that doesn't make it right.
Okay.
Don't give them any ideas.
You spoke about the use of marijuana not being legalized but criminalized. Can you just give us some clarity on that?
Yeah. So you can create a law that legalizes it, but the problem still exists. And you could decriminalize it through policy, not trading in it, not growing it, not distributing it. But young people are going to engage in vices. Every generation, our generation did it. In fact, we probably are it's the generation that introduced marijuana to your generation. And our parents are the ones who introduce alcohol to our
to our children.
generation.
Yeah.
Doesn't make it right. So the church and parents need to teach their children the negative impact and effects of these vices. Not only marijuana, but alcohol and other drugs. There's opioid on the market now. It's even worse, 10 times worse than cocaine and even heroin. It kills you. So we got some serious problems. Perhaps not in this country, but we're moving towards it. With things like this, we're moving towards it. Kids will begin to experiment. Oh, the high is not such that, I need to get higher. So why not take a pill? It's an opioid pill. And then we got another problem on our hands.
Okay, back to the medicinal use of marijuana. I'm wrapping up.
Okay.
Depression and anxiety can be considered a reason to use medicinal marijuana. You said that marijuana causes anxiety and depression. So can you just give me clarity on your feelings about this? The double-edged sword.
Oh, could you repeat that? I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah. It causes some.
Depression.
Yeah,
anxiety can be
because
a side effect of marijuana.
can't function.
But
You can't get a job.
it also, in a medicinal sense,
It reduces.
it reduces depression and anxiety. So it's like a double-edged sword. So can you clarify your feelings about this?
Well, from research, we see that it can cause depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, because it decreases your ability to function properly in society.
Can't hold on a job.
You can't drive properly. You can't hold down a job.
Can't pay your bills.
You know there are a plethora of things that happen to you just as in alcohol, the same effects that it has. And in fact, in Colorado, the studies prove that traffic fatalities and accidents has increased from the use of marijuana from their studies. So my point is, why legalize something like marijuana that is so harmful to society, not only to the individual, but to society on the whole, when we have a plethora of we have gambling, we have alcoholism. I don't know if there's an Alcoholic Anonymous here on Grand Bahama.
Yes, there is.
Is there one? Okay, but they talk about putting the safety net in place. That never happens, right? We see our people walking on the streets. They're spaced out from marijuana, from alcohol, and all the cocaine, and all the negative vices that is out there. So why legalize something to negatively impact society more than it is already? And we have, they say, like they say, they're putting on safety nets in place. But why? We have an old saying, say prevention is better than cure. So why legalize it?
But to piggyback on what you, just for clarity, medicinal marijuana to a kind of different from the general use of it. Yeah, so that's, yeah. So it goes into a lab, and the pharmacist or the scientist, the technicians, they extract that part of the drug that does good for a particular illness. You see, as opposed to the negative side of it, which causes you as to get a high and you become lethargic, you can't function properly, you're grinning all the time, you get hungry all the time, and you're happy all the time, So there is a huge difference between the two.
Okay, and lastly, my last question. It is said that passing this law can bring a tourism boost to the island, to the country.
Tourism boost?
Yeah.
I don't buy that for what.
Different types of tourism
Yeah,
Just
who,
as there
you mean
are
tourists who can, who,
Medically.
medically.
You mean medically?
even so that one, no.
No, they can find it anywhere now.
No, they could get it anywhere.
They can get it anywhere.
Why come here when they could get it in the United States?
Yeah.
No, I don't buy that. I don't.
You know, recently you heard a lot about the Turks and Caicos Islands concerning American tourists that are coming in with ammunition and guns into their country. And Turks and Caicos passed a very strict law when it relating to guns because of all the problems they were having. And that's a nation smaller than us,
Smaller.
right? And
Very
and,
small.
and the United States Embassy went to task with Turks and Caicos. But the fact of the matter is they have the guns, they have the bullets in their luggage. Right? And so which means that what Americans need to learn with the Turks and Caicos Islands is leave your guns at home. So you do the same thing. Leave your marijuana at home. If you want to come to the Bahamas and enjoy us, you don't need to bring your destructive devices into this country. And one of the things we have to do as a nation, we have a certain culture in the Bahamas. And we should be proud of our culture and not try to become like any other country. You see, we need to be distinctively Bahamian, original, not a carbon copy.
We shouldn't even grow it. We shouldn't even grow it. We don't have the infrastructure to create medical marijuana. So you're opening a huge door. So what we should do is even for medical purposes, it should be imported, meaning the medicine should be imported.
Yeah, that's right.
I had an opportunity to go to there's a health store in America. They have a whole marijuana section. I mean, of products that have come from marijuana, all permissible. I mean, all
Legal.
No, but I'm talking about for medical purposes. Properly packaged, you can read on it what's all in it. Nothing in there will get you high. It will not get you high. It will not get you intoxicated. It's totally healthy. You can use it for medical, but you can. But it's not something you do with recreation. In that store, you're not buying something you can go and smoke. That you can get high off. It's all for medical purposes. The Christian Council president made a good point. We do not have the ability to turn marijuana into medical marijuana.
You don't.
That doesn't exist in the Bahamas. So even when you're talking about legalizing marijuana for medical purposes, it's like we don't have one company in this country that turns marijuana into a medicine. Whereas you go to the United States, you can buy packages for almost every different thing, and the foundation of that product is marijuana. But I can't use it to get high or whatever. So you see what I mean? So what I'm saying is, I hear the words, so you say practically, it's not because we don't have the.
What will happen is the foreigners will come in and take over the industry. They will set up the labs, they will package it, and they will sell it to our people, and they will make the money.
Absolutely.
And we'll create a parallel economy that does not benefit us
Again.
but become destructive.
And take up space.
And take up space. So, look, we caution the government. We caution the government because the government doesn't believe that this can affect them. And,